Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have with me a very special returning guest for his third time, Christopher G Brenning. Christopher, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Good to be back. It's good to see you. I think the last time I was on with you, the Wrathbringer hadn't even been released yet, so it's been a few months.
Yep. I was actually just referring to your cover reveal the other day. We had somebody on. They're like, "Oh, that'd be really cool." I'm like, "Christopher did it, so you should do it too." So we talked about doing that for their book too. So you know me, I love art, so I love your cover. So I was really happy to have you on for that cover reveal. That was awesome. So it made my season 2, if you will. Yeah, but how have things been going since we talked in August? Pretty well so far?
Things have been going very well. I published the Hellborn King April of 2021. So in that entire span of time, half of the royalties I've generated have come in the last 90 days. So
Wow.
yeah, word's getting out there. I'm up to 14 countries I've sold copies in now. It's very surreal to look at my Amazon dashboard every day and just go, wow, I mean, I would earn, like chump change every month, and now things are finally starting to happen. And I'm just that much closer to being able to do this full time. So it's not like I'm bragging or anything. I'm just like that pumped that finally, after all these countless hours and years now of putting work into this, it's finally starting to happen. So I'm a little excited, if you can't tell.
Oh, yeah, I don't blame you. Anytime on Twitter I see somebody, they're like, "What should I be reading?" I'm like, Hellborn King, Hellborn King, Hellborn King. I have like 4 of your covers saved, so at any point I can just be like, bam, bam, bam. And my friend the other day, he's like, "Oh, you're so altruistic." I'm like, "No, I'm really selfish." I was like, "Christopher needs to be full time so I can get more books." I'm like, I like him a lot. I say he's a great guy. I said, but let's just be honest. I'm like, I just need more characters, particularly in this world, or from his thoughts. So yeah, but I'm glad things are going well for you. As soon as I read the Hellborn King, though, I think we had this talk a couple of times. Like, I was like, I just knew it. I'm like, things are going to pick up, particularly for book 2, and I feel that way, particularly for your book 3 in particular. I feel like really going to rev up. Yeah, I mean, that was just an amazing story. And if you new to the podcast, you haven't watched the previous episodes where I rave about the Hellborn King, it's got to be one of my favorite books, at least within the last 5 years. And I say at least, if not 10. Yeah, absolutely exquisite. I'm really looking forward for the Wrathbringer. I refuse to separate my time for your book 2. I'm literally just going to sit here before the baby comes, and I got 3 days scheduled. And as long as he doesn't come early, I'm just going to be like, bada bing, bada boom. So I'm very, very excited. I have gotten interrupted many a time for a couple of my friends who I really enjoyed their book 1. And I did not want that experience for your book 2. So I'm like really chomping at the bit. It's kind of like my Christmas present to myself is going to be those 3 days just reading your book. So I can't wait.
Well, for as much as you enjoy the Hellborn King, I strongly feel that you're going to enjoy the Wrathbringer 10 times as much. I mean, you've seen what's on Twitter, man. The reviews so far have just been amazing. Amazing. I mean, Blaze, under the radar SFF books, said it's one of the best sequels he's ever read. Goodreads, I think it's at a 4.77.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, on Amazon, it only has 4 and 5 star ratings on Amazon, so things are going really well. It's been very well received. And I was just on a podcast last weekend with Steve Talks Books, and
oh, cool.
Yeah, and all the guys were commenting about just how much of a dramatic difference there is just in the writing quality, the storytelling quality. So I think that's really going to stand out to you, and you're just going to absolutely love where this story goes. You're going to love it.
I'm ready. I'm ready and raring to go. I already had resituated my office for my winter reading. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm like ready to go. So that's going to be one of my favorite reviews that I've done so far. I guarantee. I was still going back and listening to the Hellborn King again on Audible, trying to get those, reviews and things like that. And I've been re-listening to it so that, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be good to go again for, book 2. But yeah, I'm like just getting more and more excited because I'm like the time is almost here. Like, vacation time is really almost here. So yeah, that's going to be awesome. It's hard to see the reviews and then not really read too far into them, because the one I know was a spoiler, and I shared it, but I told people, I was like, I haven't read the book yet. I was like, please don't say anything. I was like, if you read the book, or if you're interested, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's been kind of hard at this point to duck in and out, but
You will not be disappointed. It'll be well worth the wait.
awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So you said that that's gone a lot better. So how has the release of Wrathbringer been going just in general? Like, I know, we talked before. Did you change anything? Then when we talked with the cover reveal, when it went to your approach, like, was there anything extra, that you kind of did last minute that you think helped with the book 2 and its release?
Release day for book 2 was a little rough. I was on vacation at the time, and was having a hard time sleeping. And when you hit that publish button on Amazon, who knows when it's going to be live? Who knows?
Yeah.
So I woke up around midnight, checked the emails, and all of a sudden I get 2 emails from Amazon saying that the submission was rejected because there was an error with the cover art or whatever, or something was wrong with it. And so, just in a complete panic, I spent like the next 4 hours fixing everything, and then relaunched it. So launch day was very stressful. It did not go as planned. It actually took a couple of days for the hardcover to go live, but I mean, it happens. But everything since then has been great. The book's been very well received. It's sold in 10 countries so far, and it's that vindication that I needed when, before I even published the Hellborn King, I had 50 agent rejections. I thought this was just a dumb idea. I might as well shelve it, and it's never going to see the light of day. I just need to write another book, because I wanted to be an author at that point, but I decided, no, I need to stick with this and see it through to whatever end. And now with book 2, the response has just been amazing. And book 1 is just selling like hotcakes because people are wanting to get into the series now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of put a lot of pressure on me to get the next one put out as quickly as possible and kind of keep the momentum going.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. It's interesting that you said that. I mean, I just had a guy on TikTok that I follow, and his release, same thing. Like, he goes to release, was checking some things 3 days before, and I believe his book's supposed to release. So I guess it's tomorrow, and Amazon completely locked it. So he has the paperback, but not the Kindle version. So I'm just like, holy moly. Like, that, to me, that would be very, very, very stressful. So
very stressful, because I didn't want to do a pre-order because of the way Amazon rankings work.
Yep.
If you're a relatively unknown author and you try to do a pre-order, it's actually going to work against you in the rankings from everything I've seen. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to launch it on launch day, and of course, it didn't go as planned, but everything since then has been really good.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, as long as you can recover from it, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's the only problem with those pre-orders. I mean, I know some people that, they might do like 50 pre-orders, but then, it really hits them later on. I mean, it really stinks that that's the case. I mean, to me, it would seem like if you are, if you're selling books in whatever capacity, it just seems like you're selling books for them. So to me, it's weird. Like, I feel like that now, you have authors like yourself who aren't going to pre-order. So, well, what happens when, you have a good pre-order going, and then those people have better reviews, and then that's going to help you sell more books? Like, I've seen a couple arguments either way for them doing that, but I haven't really found one to me that really sticks or, really makes sense. But yeah,
maybe with the next one, I'll do it, as the fan base for the series and everything grows. I may end up doing them in the future, but just still kind of being a relatively unknown, it didn't make sense to do it this time around.
Yeah, no, yeah. Oh, I feel like a lot of people I know that do well with them, I mean, I feel like it's mostly like, book 4, either in the same series or a different series, book 5, that kind of thing, like, yeah. So I don't really know anybody that's done a really good pre-order, personally. Like, I've heard of people, but I don't know anybody personally who's done a good pre-order for, even books 1 and 2. I mean, I guess 3 sometimes, depending on what's going on. But yeah, that is really interesting. You said you have up to like 14 different countries now for publication. I just was curious because I've heard a lot of people say Germany is a really big one in terms of fantasy. Has that one been good for you at all? Or I was just curious.
Yeah, Germany's been very good to me. I think it's like my third or fourth biggest market.
Dang.
Yeah, and like some of the crazier ones that I didn't think I'd be growing a fan base in are India and Brazil. I've been selling quite a few
Oh,
copies there,
oh, that's
which is
interesting.
intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that is interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
I would expect Germany. I just know that, I don't know what's going on there with the publication, but I know so many, people over the last decade, who have done really well with German translations, both for Kindle, and Audible, and then they seem to, sometimes sell more than, here in the States. So it seems to be their thing. But yeah, those other two, those are pretty interesting. I would love
Yeah.
to figure out the analytics there and kind of see why. To me, that is really interesting. Maybe you're onto something here. Maybe they're, those two are like the next Germany, in terms of
Yeah,
your
maybe. Yeah.
fantasy.
I mean, Spain, the Netherlands, and Italy are kind of taking off too. I've been selling a lot more there
Mm,
recently. So it's very exciting to see the fan base growing
cool.
worldwide. And I just hope that I just hope I never let anybody down. That's just my number one fear, is that I'll put out a couple of good books and everybody will be so hyped for it, and then I'll miss, but that's just me being hard on myself.
Yeah, I feel like that just is. I mean, it's funny because it's funny that you mentioned that. I just watched a TikTok with Sylvester Stallone talking about Rocky Five, and they're like, it was an older interview, but they're like, rate the host like rate the Rocky films, and then they're asking him, and he's rating them. Then they get to five, and he's like 0 out of 10, and they're like, what do you mean zero? He goes 0 out of 10. He's like, I hate it. We missed the mark. He goes, I missed the mark. He's like, we just didn't have it that time. He's like, the other ones I think did. And he goes, I think Rocky Balboa, 6 was a lot better, and 7.5 out of 10, and that to me like really hit me. I'm like, here you got a guy, who, wrote this great, amazing screenplay, did all these things. And, if he can have a bomb on a 5, I feel
Yeah.
like some of us have a little bit more leeway. But yeah, it's funny too, because I did see, it's funny seeing people talk about Brandon Sanderson too, and for me, like Warbreaker by him was amazing. Like I loved it. And that's like his least popular book, I think, still to like all time. And if you look at like Goodreads and things, I mean, people trash that thing. And I absolutely loved it. It's given me so many ideas. So who knows, it could be, somebody's favorite, so maybe not certain people, but I feel like that's just how it goes sometimes. But yeah, it's interesting. Different strokes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what do you think helped with this release compared to the Hellborn King?
Um, just having fans already. I mean, Hellborn King, I started off, nobody knew who I was. The only people that were buying my books were friends, family, and coworkers, and I had no platform online. I had, for the longest time, I was stuck at like 30 followers on Twitter, and just like I was using all the hashtags, I was posting regularly, like I was doing everything right, and I could not gain the traction. So this time around, actually having a small but growing fan base, that definitely helped.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely I love where because what was it, a couple months ago, right? On Twitter, you hit over 1K for followers, right?
No, not quite. I'm
Oh, okay.
still at, let me see. I think I'm at like 820. Yeah, it's about 820-ish.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I
That's
put
still
up
a
a
lot though.
yeah, I tweeted, I don't know, maybe it was like a month ago or whatever, and just wanted to say thanks to everybody, for following me, and I ended up gaining like 200 followers just off that one tweet. So it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I'm curious to see with like Elon Musk buying Twitter if we're gonna get back to like a year and a half ago where you could just put up one hashtag for the writing community, and that because like a year and a half ago when they changed that algorithm for that in TikTok, I mean, I feel like Twitter in particular, like I would see you post all the time. I mean, any of my friends, who are in the writing community, and now it's like I have to like go and search for people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like really hard, so I'm curious if we're ever going to get back to how the algorithms were working before, because I feel like so many people would just be like, say something about book community. I would put up something for a podcast. I'd have like 40 interactions, easy. And now it's hard to get like 6 out of anything. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to see if that's going to change.
Well,
But
time will
well, that's
tell.
awesome. Yeah, it's nice to see. It's nice to see people when their platform is building, but not just with bots and things, but like actual people who really enjoy the books, or your world building, your writing. that kind of thing. So yeah, that's really awesome to see. I understand why though, because book one was awesome. So for our audience, in case they haven't, speaking of new, members, we have quite a few new people who have been listening, hopefully on Apple Podcasts and a couple places. But for those people who have not seen your previous 2 interviews with us, can you just explain to them what the Wrathbringer Book 2 is about?
Wow. So book 1 was a lot of establishing the lore, the world building, and the characters, and kind of getting the initial game board set. And Wrathbringer starts the spring after. So Hellborn King ends like late fall. Winter is coming, and Wrathbringer picks up that spring. And you get a little bit of peace moving across the board, but I tried to sprinkle battles throughout the course of the book. You get a decent sized one in Act 1 and a couple of raids and throughout it. But it's not only continuing the character's story, but it's also broadening the scope of the world. You're going to notice that too. Cool. Yeah, so it's definitely building. You're going to get a lot more backstory as to the world building, the lore, the motivations of the characters. So it's just the next step in building up the series. So like the foundation was already laid with Hellborn King. Now we're starting to build upwards.
Well, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. I have to say still, it's really hard for me to find a chapter to beat your chapter 1. I mean, I think about it a lot when I'm writing too. I'm like, is this going to, grab someone's attention like Christopher's did with me for that first chapter? And I actually was just talking to another writer who had read your book too, book 1, The Hellborn King, and he said the same thing. He's like, yeah, we're using. I just want you to know we're using it to try and get people more interested. I mean, that first chapter to me just really sets the tone, for the book, and it was interesting to see people, for reviews and things for you for book 2, where, I saw a couple people mention that, where they're like, man, as soon as you hit that tone in chapter 1, it just keeps going, all the way to the end of book 2. And I think that's really hard to do. So,
yeah, in fact, when I was on the podcast last week with Steve, a couple of guests were on, they said that they thought the prologue for Wrathbringer was better than the prologue for Hellborn King. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple people say that.
Yeah, which is surprising to me because I didn't think I was ever going to be able to top it. But yeah, I think it's really well done. It immediately gets you, just with the prologue in Hellborn King, it just immediately gets you into the world and into what's going on. And I can confidently say that the prologue for book 3, which I'm working on that and a prequel novella at the same time. So yes, I'm writing 2 books at the same time. So the prologue for book 3, I wrote it in 2 days, and I think it's the best of the 3.
Wow. That's
awesome. So I cannot wait to get that one done.
Oh, that is cool. Oh, prequel too. That's awesome. I know before you had talked a little bit about, thinking about that, but
yeah, I was thinking about it. I took a new job this year, and the winter hours are a lot more demanding than at my previous job. So my writing time isn't as abundant as I'd like it to be. So what I decided was, hey, I've been toying with this idea of doing a prequel. I'm getting a lot of momentum right now. Why don't I just put that out first?
Yeah.
So people don't forget about me, like right when I'm starting to build momentum. So I'm hoping to have that one done and out sometime in spring, but don't quote me on that.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that's a good model though. I've seen quite a few people, do that. And, just like you said, like really trying to get book 3, ready and raring to go. And, just putting through that prequel, it seems to help people out quite a bit, particularly for book 3. I've seen a couple people do it for book 2 and it helped, in between 1 and 2, but particularly book 2 and 3, it really seems to, to help. So it also gives you some more time, right? To make sure, everything's good to go. But
yeah. And plus another motivation for doing that is I noticed a lot of readers are getting a certain perception of Damien Dreadfire in particular. They tend to think he's less morally gray and more evil. So that's another reason why I kind of want to put out the prequel. So you're going to learn more about his motivations and why he's doing the things he's doing. So that's going to kind of hopefully shift him back into that morally gray category.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mhm.
And put
Well,
me
I mean,
down for
at the end of book one, when he did the Madeline, that's been I mean, universally reviled, but
yeah.
you know,
I saw a couple people with the reviews. I'm like, oh, they just got to that part in book one.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Well, but thankfully everybody that's read that part in the book like doesn't um use that to like think of the book negatively or review
Oh
it
yeah.
bad or give the wrong impression of me as an author. It's just, that's logically where the story was going. I could have killed her, spoiler, but I decided not to because her story had so much more to it. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I write my characters so that if they're in situations they don't have plot armor, you got to get out of it one way or another, and she got out of it, in a fairly bad way. So yeah, I'm very thankful to everybody who's read that chapter in particular and has not poo-pooed the entire book because
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I feel like there were other things that you did where, like you could clearly tell you were setting up a particular type of story. And I have to say, from her perspective in particular, you know, like we talked in our last interview, some of the things that you did, I don't want to give things away, but some of the things you did with world building, to me, with her perspective, and it really solidified, the world. Yeah. And I mean, you've given every character choices, and they've, decide it feels like they are deciding rather than you, like what they're doing. And I
Right.
think that's how it came off, more than you just decided, oh, I'm just going to do this thing. So to me it was like, like you said, like it was really an inevitable spot at that point. So which I think
Yeah.
made it a more compelling story.
In fact, I had one, maybe two reviews. I think one of them was on Audible, and it was like, well, I mean, it wasn't the greatest review, but one of the complaints in it was, well, these characters make dumb decisions. Why do they do that? And it's like, well, not everybody makes wise decisions in the moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes people make the wrong choice and they have to pay for it. And
Yeah.
that, I
Life.
don't want any of my characters to be perfect. I want them to make mistakes, and then I want them to pay for those mistakes or learn something from them. So that I feel kind of breathes life into them, and gives them more of that human touch that you can relate to in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I felt like they were more realistic that way because
Mhm.
they had flaws, and they were trying to do the right thing in the moment, and then they might think that I feel like that way. I'm like, oh, did I make the right decision 6 months ago? I'm like, maybe not. Like
Yeah,
I have a few decisions to make this year by the end where I'm like, oh, 6 months later I might be like, that was dumb, but
yeah, yeah.
I did the best in the moment. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because even though it's a fantasy book, I do want to bring as much realism into it as possible,
yep,
and that's just one of the ways I can help achieve that. And that's done for more immersion sakes, that you really feel connected to these characters and you're invested in their story and their struggles. It's hard to do that when you have a character who's just perfect and everybody loves them and they never make mistakes, and they can triumph in any situation. I didn't want to write that kind of book. I
yeah,
just didn't.
yeah. You can go back to the '90s and read most of the fantasy, and that'll be what you get. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, for that fourth question there, I'm just curious at what sort of things maybe you're either struggling with or trying to decide. I know a lot of people I talk to, with book three, particularly when that momentum's getting there, they just want to make sure, they're making, the right decision. So sometimes they take a little bit more time. So I was just curious, maybe either with, outlining or plotting or even writing, like, was there anything you're struggling with? Was it maybe tying up loose ends, finding new places, in your world for people to go? I was just curious at maybe what's one thing that you maybe found harder, writing book three than book one and two, without giving
Um,
spoilers.
Yeah, so I essentially wrote book one and two in my head at the same time. I
Mm,
knew I knew pretty much exactly what I wanted to have happen start to finish, and I left a little wiggle room for ideas to pop into my head, or like Titan, for example, was a like kind of a last minute addition. Like he
oh
was not
man.
originally in the game plan, and now he's such an integral part of the story. Book three, I don't have a whole lot planned out. I mean, I know certain places I need characters to be, certain battles that I know are going to happen, and I know certain characters that I want to have die. I don't know if the story will go that way, but there's just a lot of unknown. And so the struggle is to not drop the ball now, because I think I've kind of avoided the sophomore curse with Wrathbringer. But that doesn't, it doesn't mean I can't still, have a dud on book 3. So there's a little bit of pressure, and just not really having the same outline of ideas that I had for the other 2.
No, I mean, I think that makes total sense. I think you bring up a good point too, right? Like, everybody always wants a fan base, but then once you start to get that fan base, then it becomes harder, right? Because then there are things that are expected of you,
Yes.
and I think that's the curse of success, as an author at times, and it's something that not a lot of people talk about. I think some people, once they get to a couple of trilogies down or something, they're just like, oh yeah, whatever. And it's like, no, like they're, I've talked to a couple authors privately where they're like, yeah, like, there's a little bit more pressure, to finish things. I feel like Will White, I talked to, some people who interviewed him for one podcast, and, he talked about that, trying to draw Cradle to a close, and he's like, he has the same fears. It's funny that, somebody that sold over 1 million copies, has, the same fears. Or Stephen King was one that somebody just interviewed him, and he actually said the same thing. And I'm like, well, Stephen King feels that way. I feel like
Yeah.
the rest of us are okay. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. For that 5th one there, are there any new strategies or tools that you are using this time around? Could be writing tools, could be, different organizers. I was just curious.
No, not really. I think, kind of backtracking a little bit onto the last question too. Whenever I'm writing, I'm always listening to music, and each character kind of has their own playlist and everything. The problem for me is I'm just running out of music to listen to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and like certain albums and songs I've just listened to death, so it's hard to draw inspiration from it. So,
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time when I should be writing just perusing YouTube, trying to find new stuff to listen to. But as far as like new strategies, not really. I mean, the key for me is just to try to stay consistent, because it's like some days I'm tired, or I don't feel like writing. I just want to play a game, or I just want to hang out with friends or something. And just really fighting to stay in that. All right, so I have to hit X number of words a week, and I have to do this consistently. That's a challenge, and I haven't really come up with a new way to do that. Hopefully I do, because I don't want to pull a George R.R. Martin and have people waiting 10 years for a book.
Yeah. But that's why my friend and I, like, we haven't book club Game of Thrones yet. We're like, yeah, I'll just wait till he's done. My friend goes, maybe we should start now after Mal's Book of the Fallen. But it's interesting that you brought up music though, because a friend of mine had that same problem, and like really struggled, and really had to get out there with people to be like, hey, he's got to drive like I do, like 45 minutes, like there and back to work. So yeah, a little bit more time, to listen and see if he likes stuff. But he was literally like, this is what I like to listen to. And he went all over his social media. It was like, hit me with what you got, like Spotify, whatever, YouTube channels, things like that. And that's where I actually got a few of mine. I find I used to be able to do the 90s music, because I knew it so much, and it would still pump me up or whatever, make me feel good, memories and things. But now I've gotten that curse as an author or writer where I can't listen to words. So I've really struggled to listen to different meditative music, ambience, things like that. I feel like but same thing though, you can only listen to 2.5 hour tracks for so long before you're just like, right. Oh my gosh. So right. Yeah, I think that's really
I mean, that's why a lot of the music that I listen to is in other languages, so that I'm not getting familiar words pumped into my head and throwing me off. So like, yeah. I listen to like a lot of neo folk, like Heilong, Bordruna, stuff in that sort of vein, where it's neo folk.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of that, but certain characters like Lucetta, for example, like I listen to black metal with her, and it's pretty much only one band that I play. It's a band from Switzerland called Shamash. These guys are it's so great. It's so atmospheric, and it's just her essence. And it's been a couple of years since they put out an album. They're working on one now, and I'm just like, come on, guys, hurry up, because I need to listen to this so I can write.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, that was a good one. That's a great answer. Yeah, I think that that's one that a lot of people, don't really consider. But if you're, used to something like that and you feel productive that way, obviously, you're gonna want to continue that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that makes total sense. That's a good one. You got me thinking now, now I'm gonna have to look up some different folk music because I love me some folk music. So that's awesome. All right, one of my favorite questions I've been asking people recently. Which of your characters would you choose to fight beside and why?
Wow. Oh boy. How do I even answer that? Well, what character would I choose to fight beside and why? Well, not the only character, but definitely a guy that's going to be, in my pantheon would be Titan.
Hmm.
He's a very capable warrior. He fights without fear, and he's that guy that you want beside you. He's a big, strong brute, and he fights with hate, and he's very good at what he does. So I would have to say Titan Bradshaw.
That's a good one. I asked this question to you, and I still can't pick. I'll have to send you my answer
Yeah.
later. I keep going back and forth between a few different people, and I'm like, I can't pick one.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing, as a reader, So you as a writer did such a great job where I'm like, oh, I really like this character, and I think they fight well in this circumstance, and then I'm like, I really like this character, so I think that kudos to you. It's really hard to pick one, but I'd be interested to hear what other people who have read the books say on that one. I was thinking about asking that at some point on Twitter or something like
I
that.
was just gonna say that sounds like a Twitter poll to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a Twitter poll. So I'd be very anxious to see what people had to say. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that's a good one. Yeah, she's awesome. If you could visit any part of the world you created, which would it be and why?
Wow. Even though it's a squalor-ridden hive of degeneracy, I'd have to say Cardale, uh, just because of the scope and how large it is, and it kind of has that.
Moss Eisley to it.
I don't want to say ancient Rome type of feel because I didn't base it off of that, but it has that same type of feel to it to me, and that's a place I would be interested in visiting. I would have to have some means of protection with me.
You have to have
But
Titan
yeah,
Dome with you.
yeah, there you go. Or have a band of purple cloaks following me around. That would be that would be advantageous.
Oh yeah, I would definitely read that short story where you and Titan go into like a tavern or something there. That would be awesome.
See, don't tempt me because I love writing tavern scenes. I just love them. They're my favorite scenes to write. So don't give me ideas.
It's so like matches the genre and so matches Titan as well. So I could definitely see that. That'd be really really cool.
Well, there's some good tavern scenes in the Wrathbringer. You will find out.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Well, for that last one there, Christopher, do you have any news, updates, promos, or current projects that you'd like to share with us?
Um, Not a whole lot as far as promos, current projects. Like I said, I'm writing book 3 and I'm writing the prequel novella at the same time.
Very
So
excited about that.
yeah, so I'm kind of pulling a Brando Sando on that one, where if I kind of get bored with one, I can jump to the other, and I'll just, at least I'm keeping momentum going. But
Yeah.
the goal is to get this prequel novella done and have it out into people's hands early spring, maybe somewhere around the Hellborn King anniversary. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but I'm going to do my absolute best to get it done in that amount of time.
I won't bug you, I promise. I'll have a baby, so I won't be able to by the time I'll realize it, it'll probably be out. But
actually, people should bug me because then it gives me the motivation to keep going. So
I can do that too. I mean, I do like a couple of my buddies and I do that, on occasion. One of my buddies is bugging me about one of my books. He's like, I know the baby's coming. He's like, but we gotta get this done and out by October. I'm like, I know. Well, you already sold one for your prequel, novellas. So put me down for that one, especially with Damien. So that sounds amazing. So anything more I can get in your world from you, I'm totally okay with that. If I could Patreon you to, write the you and Titan in a bar story, I will definitely do that as well.
yeah. Well, we'll we'll have to see. I have to get these next 2 done first. But
Yeah.
interesting thing that was brought up on the last podcast I was on, because they were discussing the prologues in the books, and the idea was pitched to me that, hey man, you should just write a bunch of short stories like this, where it's just
Yeah.
it's just hard and fast, and it's in different parts of the world and everything, and that kind of piqued my interest. So
Cool.
maybe once book 3 is out, I might explore doing a little something like that. So who knows?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, your style of writing for like an anthology for your world would be really, really cool. Yeah, hit them hard, hit them fast, get the emotions driving. Yeah, I could definitely see you doing that. Another really cool cover. I feel like that would go really, really well, particularly after book 3 and prequel novella. Yeah. Well, you sold two so far, so let me know when those are out.
Awesome.
It'll get you going there. Well, Christopher, per usual, it's awesome to have you on. Anytime you got something, a prequel novella, or whatever you want, just get a hold of me. I'm so glad that we could both find the time, get you in tonight. I was really not wanting to reschedule. It's like, come on. I want to talk to you about book 2 and how things were going. But again, my friend, per usual, if there's something, I can do to help you out in any way, send it to me, email me, tag me, do what you got to do, send it by mule. I don't care. And I'll do my best to help you out as best we can, and we'll get the word out per usual. Other than that, though, I hope you guys, have a good rest of the night, and I'm really looking forward to book 2, and I hope that things, continue to climb for you. So,
well, thank you, and I appreciate all the work you've done so far to get the word out about the books. I see the notifications on Twitter all the time, and I'm just like, I'm always so pumped when I see you out there spreading the word, and I really want to thank you for that. And I cannot wait to come back with you and talk Wrathbringer once you get it read. So
that was the thing I totally forgot to message you about. So we'll definitely have to have you on for an early episode for season 3. That way we could do, because I did see where did you do a video interview or just an interview with somebody where you guys did a spoiler for Wrathbringer?
That was the podcast I was on last week. That was a spoiler
okay, so it was
discussion
Steve. Okay,
yeah,
that's what I thought. Okay,
Steve, yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would love to do one of those, for both book 1 and book 2 at some point with you. Maybe in anticipation, at some point, spring or summer, for book 3 or the prequel novella. I'll definitely put you down for that. That sounds absolutely awesome to me, and I'm already, like I said, reviewing both books here in the winter anyway. So I think that'd be really cool. So cool.
Awesome. Can't wait to come back and talk with you again.
Yeah, I'm really excited. You know me. As soon as I get done with book 2, I'm gonna be hitting you up on Twitter and be like, "Why? What did you do this way?" I'll try not to get too angry. But all right, my friend. We have a good rest of the night, and per usual, my friend, I will see you on social media.
All right, sounds good, man. Cheers.
We're going, buddy.
Good night.
Bye.